Yeah, Joe's town's very set up for natural disasters just because it's such a pessimistic town with the hospitals, fire stations, police stations.
What an easy job Simon must have had. Already had this all implemented, but not working.
No less than I would expect from Joe. It's just full of bugs, not properly designed.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll just blindly accept everything because I have such faith.
One of my pet peeves with Bolt is as you start building the file and it gets to 400, 500, 600 lines, it takes an age to if you wanted to change it 1 or 2 lines, it has to rewrite the whole thing out.
Earthquake frequency, 10% chance per day of an earthquake occurring, which in real life would be very scary.
You're listening to the AI Native Dev, brought to you by Tesla.
Hello and welcome to another AI Native Dev episode. And this is actually a part 2 of our episode, following on from last week's episode where both Joe and I created a couple of applications, one using BASE44, one using Bolt.new, from a challenge that Macy gave us to create a tiny town simulator application. Now, this time, what we're going to do this time around is we're going to swap that application with each other. So I'm going to use the creation from Joe, which was the tiny town simulator from Bolt.new, and Joe's going to take my application that I created using BASE44. Joe is going to try and make an alteration, a new feature addition using Windsurf, and I'm going to do the same to Joe's application using Cursor. The trick is, of course, we don't know what that feature is going to be until Macy provides us to it live on the show. You don't necessarily need to listen back to the previous episode, but it's a great way of seeing these tools, BASE44 and Bolt.new, in action in creating the challenge applications to this state. But like I say, you don't need to watch them to enjoy this episode. Now, there will be a lot of screen sharing happening as Joe uses Windsurf and I use Cursor. Like I said before, you don't need to if you're only listening via the podcast like Apple Podcast or Spotify and so forth, and you don't have access to the visuals. We will be narrating what we're doing, so you'll be able to hear the things that work, the areas that we have problems with, and at the end, we'll have a nice comparative talk about what worked and what didn't with all the various tools. But if you are watching on YouTube, that is probably the best way to watch the episode, as you'll be able to see exactly what the tools are doing on the show. But you'll enjoy it both ways. Here we go into the episode. Enjoy it. He's got a copyright. He added a copyright at the bottom.
He's got a copyright, I know.
Wow, all these things. So looking at this, it actually looks surprisingly similar to what I created. I think he was just as blasé with his... Did he write five words as his first prompt?
He actually didn't.
He didn't.
There's many more than that.
That's interesting that we actually have very similar outputs in terms of the kinds of things with happiness, population, residents. Looking at it, he has residents, but he has no roads. He has no industry. His world, his town is just basically a place where people live and have incidents, whether they're police incidents, fire incidents, or hospital incidents. That's Joe's world.
Well, that's okay. There's a community center.
As a community center where people can have incidents together as a community. All right, cool.
Exactly.
So I think we're ready for our next session, right? Our next feature.
Yes. So I am going to give you an edit. Joe is going to have the same edit to make on your code. But again, this is about your imagination mostly.
Okay. Thank you very much. Look at this.
We only have one envelope.
So Macy's handed me another envelope. Let's see what I need to change. Add natural disasters, at least 2. Okay, I think this is something which is very reasonable, very easy to add, actually, particularly with Cursor. What's Joe using? Joe's using Windsurf. Right?
Joe's using Windsurf.
Yeah, so I think that'll be quite similar. My gut feel is I could have done this easier from BASE44, actually, with such a change. So that's interesting. Although that said, yeah, Joe's town's very set up for natural disasters just because it's such a pessimistic town with the hospitals, fire stations, police stations. Okay, so let me familiarize myself first of all with Joe's very basic UI here. Oh, I need more money, do I? Okay, so I can add I can add 2 houses, a hospital and a fire station. So we don't have enough for general amenities. This reminds me of Basingstoke, where I'm from. But let's leave that. Oh, look, I can just keep advancing like that.
Where are you getting the money from?
Because I don't know, it's a good point.
So who works quirks at the 5 speed.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm going to add a bunch more things, and hopefully I'm hoping there'll be some state, which is, I'm not sure, probably not. I'm going to have to do this every time, aren't I? Okay. All right. First thing I'm going to do is change my budget. And so let's go to Cursor. I'm actually do I start with understanding how the code is organized? Do I even bother looking at the code, or shall I just jump straight in? I can see some obvious things. Okay, you have a cell, obviously a game board with various cells, a number of game controls, which are advanced day and things like that. So it's surprisingly reasonably easy just to...
Do you feel that way because it's very similar?
Very similar to mine, possibly, but I feel like it's just probably the naming of... I'm very used to actually the way Bolt kind of structures the way it does things.
Which is how? Like, how is it different?
No, it's not different. It's very similar to how I expect it to be, or how would it be different if I was to build it? It seems very reasonable. I guess perhaps it shows how many games I've probably tried to build with Bolt, but to have that game board, game controls, an event system. Okay, so maybe this is interesting. It's got an event system. Oh no, this isn't a natural disaster event, is it? That's just something happens on the board. Okay. So I guess what I want to do is, first thing I want to do, and I'm actually looking forward straight away using Cursor, the one thing I'm looking forward to is just the speed at which things can change, completely different to obviously BASE44. So I'm just going to say, first of all, give me, I don't know, 15,000 budget to start with. And actually I'm doing this via Cursor, where actually I pretty much could just do this myself, but because I'm not familiar with the code, actually, no, I probably want a ton more. Let's actually just set that to 25 myself. Okay, next thing
That's really nice. Sorry, just to point out that it's like actually just listed for you the cost of things.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Good context.
Yeah.
Extremely relevant to the change you're making.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. And 25, even looking at it, let me see it. If 25 is the default, 6. Actually, what I'll do is I'll say set the game board up with the default 5 houses plus 1 of each other building, so that I have a initial template. Actually, I'll say set the game board up randomly.
Right.
Yeah, just so it's slightly different every time. But now I can have some natural disasters that I don't, assuming this will be reset every single time. It's set it up not randomly at all. It set it up randomly the first time.
It's like just so much easier for me to parse than the prototyping tools where things just happen.
Yeah. And actually the one nice thing that I like here is typically with Bolt, I assume BASE44, I didn't actually even look at the code with BASE44. I assume it's going to be the same, where it just rewrites the entire file. One thing I really hated with Bolt, one of my pet peeves with Bolt is as you start building the file and it gets to 400, 500, 600 lines, it takes an age to if you wanted to change 1 or 2 lines, it has to rewrite the whole thing out. Why I love this kind of, and I don't even know what's changed at that point. So I love this. So I can accept that. Oh, it set me in a population of 100. Nice. Going back to 15,000. I'll accept that. Welcome to Tiny Town, your starter. Oh, look at that. Because I guess it's my starter. I've got to start a town. It's interesting though, because it's very much understanding what I want.
Okay, but it's not totally off.
So let's restart this.
Oh my God, did you see that call out?
What is this? A music event is being organized at the community center at 3-4. Oh, okay. It's 0 indexed it. So that's actually 4-5.
Is it flashing? Oh my God.
Like, you see that? Yeah. So for those just watching this, an emergency is happening and it's a music event is being organized. I don't know how I need to respond other than buy a ticket. Oh, my response was that it happened. The music event was happening. It was a great success. Interesting. Okay.
I'm glad you contained that emergency.
Yeah. I don't know if the police were involved or the fire station were involved in that emergency. Okay. What happened? Why is that not resetting my town? Okay. Oh, do I need to build that again? See, I'm not a very good JavaScripty person.
No, I don't. I feel like preview is a bit different as well.
Oh, really? Oh, do I just need to do an npm run from here now that it's built? Let's just do a preview.
So can I ask, what kind of natural disasters are you considering?
See, I'm thinking back into SimCity, so I want to see wasn't there like an alien attack or a massive?
Alien attacks.
Let's go for the pure natural disasters. So let's go flood or fire or that kind of stuff. Okay, it hasn't added my stuff to
The starters.
my starter stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So let's add some stuff in. Oh, actually, that's not really helped. Let's say, okay, I want a natural disaster to occur. Actually, no, let's just say randomly. It should occur on average once every 10 days. No, 5 days, just so we don't have to wait too long.
This is a horror town.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to create a random natural disaster system. It's going to modify the advanced day in the chaos manager function to include the feature. Okay, fine. 20% of chance. Oh, it's doing them itself. Look, a wildfire, which is severity 8, a health emergency 7, and a crime wave. Each disaster is randomly assigned to a building in your town. Perfect. A disaster affects town stats. Impact. Disasters will affect your town's happiness, safety. A disaster will add an element of challenge and unpredictability to your town. Okay, so it's done that.
There is something that I feel should be included, but
Go
I
on.
wonder what you think.
Go on.
It should spread.
Oh,
If it's
yeah.
not responded to, it should be spreading.
The disaster should spread to neighboring. Is that the US spelling? I'm being really kind
That's
to our
the
listeners.
US spelling,
That is the
yeah.
US spelling.
Very kind to the
Neighboring buildings or closest buildings, I guess, if they're not neighbors.
Kind of depends on the thing, right? If a fire is spreading, probably the houses should disappear. But then if it's like a crime wave, maybe they just don't make you any income or something. Like there's got to be like a consequence.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple for now, just to see if we can create a disaster and have it spread. And then we'll do both impact and resolution.
What is Simon's a professional?
I know, right? This is.
Professional vibe coding.
Can you tell I was a coder before, years ago? Okay, what's it doing there?
Wow, that was speedy.
It is. This is what I love about this. Like for me, there's two types of AI tool. There's the type of AI tool that does a lot, which and you don't care, and you care more, I guess, about overall accuracy. No, it's not even that. You do care about more accuracy there because you're not going to look at the code as much. Whereas here, I want to review it. So speed is an important thing. So it's doing that closest building or neighboring buildings, which is fine.
Closest
Okay.
building and neighboring buildings is a bit weird to separate, in my opinion.
Yeah, there probably is no need, is there?
But yeah, I feel like there's a little
Yeah.
dependency there, but fine if it works.
Let's see if it works first, and then we'll. Actually, no. I care about code now. I feel like I'm in the code now, so I want to do that. I'll say, actually, is that bad to start? Actually, you don't need closest and neighboring buildings. Closest should suffice. Because if they're neighboring, they'll be closest anyway. So we'll save this, rebuild, I guess. If that's the thing we need to do. Okay, let's rebuild. Please, I'm sure people will tell me if I don't need to do that, but I'm a Java developer myself, so this is just hurting my brain to
Feels like the path of least resistance.
do this.
for now.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the classic Maven clean, Maven build, Maven install. Oh gosh, I clicked twice. If I respond to emergency, do you think it will say it's been a great success?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's self-resolving.
Oh, thanks to the nearby hospital, it says.
Oh look,
Oh my god, again.
there are illnesses happening where my buildings aren't.
Oh, this is
Respond to emergency. Okay,
too soon.
so let's go.
If there's a fire, it's just gonna be a disaster because you have no fire departments.
Oh, good point. Let me carry that on then. A wildfire.
Respond.
Fire under control, but response was slow. Okay.
Oh, so that's not much of a consequence, is it?
Let's
Tell-
fix this.
tell them not.
So let's say disasters, first of all, can only occur on buildings that exist. Empty spaces cannot have disasters. Then let's say, I'm going to do this just all as one prompt. Disasters can't be auto-resolved. The user must perform an action to fix the issue. The relevant disaster recovery service must be present to resolve the disaster. For instance, a fire needs a fire station on the map to be resolved.
Now, could you build one if it wasn't there during the fire?
Yeah, could do. That's a very realistic way of dealing with things. If there's a real fire, we'll just have to wait the 6 months to build a fire station, and then we can put the fire out.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. That's such LLM logic.
Yeah.
An LLM built it down.
I don't know what your experience is with particularly with Cursor, things like this, whereby I'm actually asking for 3 very different changes to happen. In real life, I would probably ask for one at a time and make sure each one is happening as I would like. But given I have, I think, 3-4 minutes left, this is kind of like, I do this. And you know what? I'm just going to blindly accept everything.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I wouldn't necessarily... It's interesting, though, because when you're working on real software, deciding on the things you want to be changed and the way that you want them to be changed is the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
The other thing is I've asked it to, by default, add buildings for me. It hasn't done that. I'm just glossing. I'm still doing it manually.
Yeah, it's lost it somewhere along the way.
So let me add... Actually, let's not add a...
Residence is ready to party.
Okay.
You poor people. You don't know what's
right. And let's add a community centre. A crime wave has hit the town.
Oh my God.
It's happening across 2 buildings. Let's not respond to it. I can't advance to the new day. So I have to respond. I've told you I can't. That's interesting. It's resolved it. So a couple of things I want to do.
It shouldn't be able to because I didn't have a police station.
Yeah, I was able to resolve a crime. I wonder if it's going to take me literally here or whether it's assuming this is the app. I was able to... I was able to resolve a crime without a police station. This should not be possible. Also, I want to advance to next day, even if a disaster is in progress. Please start disasters in one building only. Because did you notice it did it across 2 buildings, and that annoyed me. Yeah. So I've made some changes, and we'll see.
Now, you have a little bit of an advantage with this edit because Joe already...
So did he intentionally add disasters?
He did not intentionally add disasters, but he did add the concept of events.
I see. Okay.
So you are benefiting from that system. On the other hand, his code was a lot more buggy.
Oh, really?
So I think you've had more trouble in these little iterations, but that you've got a little leg up, I think. We'll see how he does.
Oh, no, I still forgot to add these residents. So let's add a few buildings. In fact, I'll add a few more as well. Let's advance. Right, a crime wave has hit the town. I'm still not able
it's in the community center.
Oh, interesting. I'm still not able to advance to the next day. Okay, so let's respond. I feel like this is really frustrating now.
Yeah.
This is what I have experienced in the past, whereby I continually have to ask again and again for the same thing.
Kind of like it just tops out at some point. At some point, you're no longer able to make progress. And it seems like that's true across tools even.
Yeah. It's interesting, actually. It's saying removed the find closest buildings, and that functions as they're no longer needed. They absolutely are still needed. If I was to do this properly, I would probably make much smaller changes at a time. So this hasn't been successful. I thought this would be much more successful than it is. This hasn't been as successful as I think it could have been, because I think I would probably ask it to do much smaller things and validate that it's doing it. I think had I asked Bolt or probably BASE44 to do these things, it would probably be more successful at doing them. Interesting. That's my gut feel.
Yeah.
I quite fancy trying that afterwards. But yeah, I feel like I failed at this second.
See, I think you've done fine. Like you have made some interesting changes.
Yeah.
And I always think back to 4 years ago. Imagine showing someone this technology. Of course, that's not what the people want to talk about. But it's still, it's amazing that you didn't touch any code here.
No.
You took prototype code from a different tool.
Yeah.
You grokked it and debugged it and made some pretty fundamental changes.
Do you know, from a confidence point of view, I feel way more confident. I felt way more confident at the start of this session than I do now. I felt, oh wow, this actually works.
Yeah.
Whereas now I look at it and I feel, oh, actually, none of this is truly working. And I think what possibly would have been better, not so much having a plan of action necessarily, but what I would probably initially do is create some quality plan. And I would want to make sure that every component is doing what I need to do. Because the problem is I'm trying to build on something that isn't stable right now. And so I feel like I would need that to be fully stable. And then we're giving Cursor a hard time here, perhaps. And it's not Cursor that's necessarily causing a bunch of these problems. It's actually that the platform that I'm building it on, this initial code base, and this is no less than I would expect from Joe, is just full of bugs, not properly designed. And I feel like I would need to bolster a lot of those components. I'm being really mean to Joe, and I need to bolster a lot of those to make sure that they're better, more resilient. Yeah. And then when I ask Cursor to do stuff, it would actually have a far better chance of being able to do those things. Yeah, that's my gut feel, but I still love the interaction that I'm having here. It's just the frustration of going from this to the death loop of do this. Sure, I've done it. And then you go to a production, but you go to the run environment and guess what? It's still not done.
Great attempt. Let's get Joe in here to
Let's
work
get
on
Joe.
your code.
Yeah. Can I stay in here while that happens?
Yeah.
I can. Awesome.
Here we go.
Hello, Joe. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We have got Simon's project up and running. We learned something about BASE44 just now, which is what?
Which is that it seems to use itself as a data store, which is an interesting approach, but we couldn't figure out how to get authentication working.
Some super closed system. Like it was really hard to
get
this to run locally without authenticating to BASE44, which is...
Yeah, it seemed to want to send you back up to their app, which sort of defeats the purpose of working locally. And then when it did that, it gave an error, which I assume is because the authentication was kicked off from my local copy, which their servers didn't want to accept. Interesting setup. So we did some prompting within BASE44 to try and detach itself from itself and remove authentication. And so far, this has seemed to be successful. Maybe we did something wrong. Who knows?
Some similarities off the bat to your town.
Yeah, super interesting. So I've created a town here called Joe Town, and really fascinating to see. Obviously, I don't know how Simon prompted this, but fascinating to see that we've ended up with similar elements. Like treasury is a word that I didn't use in my prompt at all. Interesting to see that it's arrived here also. And the happiness meter, all very similar, the same grid format. But I see there's some additional features that I don't have. Also, this sort of day iteration is automatic, I noticed, which is a nice touch. Simon's got roads, and a key thing here seems to be that he's got properties of each of these things. So some things are going to make people happier, some things are going to cost money, which is interesting. I think in mine, if it worked, money would just go up. There wasn't any cost to anything. So it's potentially a bit more realistic, you could say.
Seeing how they... to me, just the grid setup is strikingly similar.
Very strange. I didn't prompt for a grid necessarily. I don't know if Simon did, but interesting. But it almost seems like we've got the same number of items in the grid as well. So there's something around under specifying your prompts. It's going to fill in the same gaps, and more often than not, it's going to fill in the same gaps, even across different tools, which is interesting.
We have got for you an edit request.
Okay.
And I'd like to see where you take this.
Okay. Macy's giggling, which makes me feel nervous.
The ceremony of the envelope. I love it.
Add natural disasters, at least 2. Super interesting, because that was part of my original game. So it'd be quite fascinating to see how Simon's dealt with this.
I feel like Simon had a bit of an advantage because you had added the concept of events.
Already did it.
On the other hand, the code was in a different state.
Interesting. So it doesn't seem to have the concept. Oh no, there is a hospital. There's no fire department. So what kind of I guess the natural disasters are going to impact the happiness score and the treasury. So things that make people sad and make us lose money.
What else even is there? Would it affect the population? Oh God.
I guess it could negatively impact the population. So yeah, maybe there's I guess a health outbreak is a natural disaster you could have that could resolve itself over time. But maybe initially just something that has an immediate impact to happiness or treasury. Maybe something a little more approachable. What's going to make people unhappy? Oh, what if there's like an earthquake that destroys some of the buildings?
I love that.
Interesting. All right, let's just start with that initial brief.
And you're using Windsurf for this, and you haven't used it before?
Using Windsurf, not used it before, no, just to get the project set up here. I am a regular Cursor user though, so this looks reasonably familiar. So I'm not even going to look at any of the code. I'm just going to say, maybe I'll give it a bit of a brief. This project is a tiny town simulator that maintains a treasury amount, happiness score, and users can place different buildings in the town that impact these figures as days progress. Probably don't need to explain it. It can read the code and understand it, but there might be a layer of indirection here, so I'm just trying to steer it a little bit. I want to add a system whereby natural disasters happen at random intervals. I wonder how it will interpret random intervals.
Random, yeah.
In the code, I want to be able to easily adjust how often these occur. To start with, there is only one type of natural disaster, which is an earthquake. That affects a subset of the grid. Any building in this subset of the grid gets destroyed, and the following day it disappears.
Oh, interesting.
Seems reasonable. So then, like, it will have some. I'm expecting it to have some sort of broken state, like the building is destroyed, and then the next day it's gone, and it's cleared the way, and you can put a new building there if you want.
Nice. I feel like it will. I want to see if it knows to affect happiness and treasury also.
Interesting,
I feel like it
yeah.
will figure that out.
So I'm not expecting it to affect treasury. You could say clearing the stuff away is going to cost money, but you've already spent the money on the building, and the building's gone now.
Oh yeah, that's
You
true.
could say it costs more money.
That's true. Yeah.
Happiness, I would definitely expect the happiness to go down. I would expect the population to go down because each of these buildings has 5 people in it. This has 20 people.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not all home. Okay, so I can see it's got some stream of thought here. I'll help you implement a natural disaster system. So we're getting past the safeguards of these LLMs, which is good. So first it's doing a bit of exploration. It's interesting. It's just saying, let me read this file, which is, on the one hand, it's nice to see the thought progression.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it doesn't help me in any way. I guess it makes me feel more confident that it knows what it's doing. So based on the code-based exploration, I understand that we need to add a natural disaster system that can randomly trigger earthquakes, implement logic. Okay, so it's just said what I said back.
That was it. I didn't even realize it was still working. So it's been doing this for a little bit.
So yeah, so it spent a bunch of time just figuring out what to do, and then it said, what I'm going to do is what you've asked me. So it's created a new file, naturaldisasters.js, which is a great file name. Earthquake frequency, 10% chance per day of an earthquake occurring, which in real life would be very scary.
I feel like I'm back in San Francisco.
And this code seems, probably reasonable. There's a loop in the loop, which looks fun to work with.
Has it stacked a bunch of changes on top?
I'm confused. Yeah, I'm a bit confused by this diff. It looks to me like it's keeping all this code and then it's removing, but this is at the top. This is like the imports. This is the top of the file.
It's just rewritten it and the diff is horrible.
It's possible. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just blindly accept everything because I have such faith. I'm going to ignore all the lint errors because I did notice when I imported this, there was a huge amount of lint errors, which is a nightmare. So it's still working actually. Yeah. Interesting. So it's in some sort of iteration loop here because it's saying, now I'm going to modify it to visualize the earthquake. Now I'm going to fix some issues. Now I'm going to fix some lint issues. So maybe what was happening, I was viewing a diff that was out of date and it was changing in an unpredictable way.
Oh, see, I don't know how user-friendly that is.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell what exactly is going on here. I guess I'm just watching it. It's explaining.
Well, but that's almost the problem. It's like it's drawing your attention to these things because it needs a human in the loop, but it's also not ready yet.
Yeah, like I can't do anything here. Like it's still going. This is make a cup of tea territory.
Well, it's trying to fix the lint errors.
Trying to fix the lint errors, which might, seen as there were so many initially, it might just send it down
It might be a disaster. Does it still compile? It looks like it's...
It currently is. It was in a broken state a minute ago.
To be fair, like if it takes 10 minutes and then it makes the code beautiful,
It's kind of nice that if I was like rapidly prototyping something here, which is the aim, I would like to be able to say, hey, don't worry about linting and stuff so much. I just want to get something working. It's maybe a little over ego, like a junior engineer that's really keen to impress, which is cool. Finally finished. So it said random earthquakes going to occur at the end of each day, 10% chance. Random area of the grid, 2 to 4 cells in size. I should increase the upper band of that to make it more fun. Oh, visual feedback with a shaking red overlay. That sounds like fun.
Cool.
The system, it very confidently says the system is now complete and working, which I'm really interested to find out if that's true. You can adjust the earthquake frequency and size. So 10% chance, we actually don't have a progress to the next day, do we? Because that happens automatically.
Oh no, don't tell me.
Yeah, so it doesn't look very much like it's working. I'm going to try restart the server.
Has it nuked it?
Seems like the natural disasters impact is larger than expected. But interestingly, what has it actually changed here? Okay, it's added a bunch of stuff to this town grid thing for dealing with the cells and clicking on the cells. Okay, it's added an animation for the earthquake effect, which I really want to see.
Does it need an npm install maybe? Has it done anything brand new?
It hasn't changed the dependencies as far as I can tell. And there's package lock change, but that's just because I installed npm installed. The code seems, there's nothing standing out. And curiously, there's no errors. Are there any front-end errors? Aha. Cannot access handle end day before initialization. Simulator.jsx. So I'm into debugging territory now. So that error appears. Oh, there's a diff. Do I need to accept all of this? Accept all? Just blindly accept it all. I assumed that it had just made the changes because it did seem like it's made some of the changes at least.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I didn't see that.
And this doesn't.
Although weirdly, it didn't give you a compilation error or anything.
No, I'm somewhat confused now because it seemed on the one hand I had to accept stuff, and on the other hand it's already accepted. This is now not showing a diff.
But it's in the changes.
But it's a brand new file. Okay, so we're still getting the same error.
Still...
Simulator.jsx. So I'm just going to go to simulator.jsx and ask this thing to... There's a front end error coming from this.
Yeah, no, it also says here, right above the chat, 0 files with changes, and yet there are a lot of diffs showing. There's a lot happening in the working tree, which seems... like, is that true or not?
Yeah, I'm a bit confused about the state of... And this is an interesting thing about these kind of editors, is you almost have... Like on top of Git, there's now like a new layer of working copy. It's like a change that's been suggested. And my understanding of those things usually is when you accept it, becomes part of your change that's in your working copy, and then you can commit. And there's some internal state management, but that does not appear to be working well. Yes, so that does seem like a reasonable fix for the error. I'm slightly alarmed that it's changed so many other things as well. Okay,
I know.
Here's the fix for this bug. This is interesting. It says, here's the error. This is why this happened, so I'm going to fix it. And then it says, oh, I see the issue. So are there 2 issues, or has it fixed it twice?
Yeah, that's confusing.
So it's a very confusing stream of consciousness. And it just seems to be taking upon itself to make unsolicited changes, which may be for the better. But with these kind of things, I'm trying to like scope down the scope of each change. So what I could maybe do if this doesn't work is start again with a smaller brief, like maybe ask it to write this kind of style file for dealing with a part of it, and then I could like layer on the UI part and layer on the other part. But that's me like adapting the workflow to help the LLM, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad shout though. But I also don't think that you asked for anything insane. It wasn't like a list of 5 things you wanted changed. It's just like add the concept of this. And sometimes we see at work that when we're overly prescriptive, it actually has the reverse effect. This is over specified, and that will also make for a bad program. And I don't feel like you did that. You let it do its thing. You gave it an open-ended thing, and it seems to really be struggling.
And this is the point, I think, of this kind of workflow, right? Is that it can edit multiple files and hold like a bunch of context in the window at a single time. And I wouldn't expect to have to break the problem down into, unless I was very opinionated about what the design should be. I want to have this file for managing this stuff and this file for managing this stuff. I would expect that it could fill in the gaps and get it working. I wonder if it's getting tripped up because there's so many issues. I wonder if I just remove the ESLint and say, look, I don't care about linting.
I think that's a good idea. And just for people listening, like this, it really is in a bit of a loop. So it's now said, I see the issue.
Yeah, I see the issue. I see the issue. I see the issue.
.js hex, edited simulator, search code base for the same function. Then again, I see the issue now. We have duplicate declarations. I feel like we've
barely got started here. So I've deleted the ESLint config in the hopes that this will make the editor understand that I don't care about linting. And I've cancelled this confusing loop. I don't know if I can clear this context window. Okay, start a new conversation. Where do we get to?
Terribly far.
Okay, so we're going to try and fix this again. So in simulator.
So now we're asking for help to like actually fix this.
Just fix this one bug.
Which we introduced because our thing still isn't rendering, which is sad.
Exactly. If this does a better job, then it might be that if we'd done the original amend after we deleted the ESLint config, then that would be good. But it is curious that BASE44 has generated an application with quite an extensive ESLint configuration, and the code that it has made is not compliant with that ESLint configuration by any means necessary. There's a bunch of lint errors. It raises the question of what's the point?
Why even add it? But then also, like, because it's such a closed environment, I'm sure in their case, like, they just don't, it just gets maybe if it's like a leftover artifact, they obviously don't suffer with the same issue.
No, but it's like, maybe they're opinionated that this is a good thing to have in a project to keep it clean, which is true, but only if you actually write code in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Why give us more work?
Okay, so it seems to have found itself in a loop again. I notice there's a duplicate declaration of handle end day in the file. I see that handle end day is defined twice. Okay. So I feel like I might need to intervene here and do some manual fixing because it might not even be that big.
I have a suspicion about what's going on here that I can't necessarily prove. But I think what might be happening is it goes through this loop. It finds something that's wrong, fixes it, then analyzes its own diff, and then is like, there's two declarations of this.
Oh, function. Interesting.
Yes, because you have just written a new one.
Did that, yeah. Interesting.
Because it does seem to be upset about its own diff, which is a real issue. And at this point, it's like, why don't I just manually...
I'm going to see if I can manually fix this.
Get rid of one, yeah.
Basically, this function, handle end day, it's called here, but it was defined further down. So I'm going to make it the first of these block of functions.
Nice.
Possible that's introduced more bugs, but let's see. Okay, so same thing with handle delete building, which is frustrating. So it's got the order of these things wrong. It's a pretty basic thing, but... Okay. All right, I think we're back.
Oh, we're back.
We're back.
Okay, amazing.
Notable that took me like 2 seconds to just fix myself. I was interested in getting the LM to fix it for me.
Yes, very notable.
Okay.
What state are we in now? What are we expecting to happen?
We're expecting that there's a 10% chance each day of a earthquake happening. So perhaps what I should do is raise that to 70% to actually test whether this is happening. I'm going to make that 80%.
Yeah, I can immediately see Joe's gone straight to the code to do that because I think
I don't trust the other them anymore.
Feeling a little cagey about the chat.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm expecting, it said there's some shaking animation, which I'm interested to see if it's done a good job.
Yeah.
I'm going to put some more buildings. What's the cheapest building? A small house.
Now, remind me, the earthquake is meant to happen like in a couple of squares, right?
Yeah, an area between 2 to 4 squares, assuming squared.
Okay, I see. So you've kind of battleshipped your houses to catch the earthquake.
Spent all my money here. But it should be an 80% chance, so I could change it to 100% chance to really keep things moving here.
As well.
Okay, 100%. Oh, that's nice. It suggested the comment. That was a very fast autocomplete. Okay, so when this day ends, there should be an earthquake somewhere.
Okay, 5.
It's quite alarming.
4. Yeah, okay. I'm nervous.
Interesting. Oh. And the animation is actually pretty good. LMs are pretty good at generating CSS animation code, it turns out.
Yeah, I'm actually impressed by that. And it scared me, so
that's a good measure of success there. But it has somehow managed to hit an area of the map where I don't have any buildings, which is quite impressive.
I thought you did have one there.
Oh, maybe I thought I didn't. Unless it disappeared immediately and that meant that I didn't see it. Okay. Everyone pay special attention now.
Okay, I was looking at happiness and it went down only 1%.
Oh, interesting. Is that just because happiness just generally goes down over time, though?
I think it does. Wow.
There's a story there about life.
Simon coded it, so.
We'll chat about that at the end. There we go. Yes.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I did.
House disappeared.
The house disappeared. It did. If I was nitpicking, the house disappeared immediately. I was expecting it to be like broken for a day and then disappear, but that doesn't really matter.
It didn't have its broken state. Now, what happened with your money? So happiness definitely went down.
Happiness went down. Is it going down all the time? We should check. Money didn't go down, but you can imagine a world where that kind of makes sense. Like the cleanup costs, we can maybe factor that in. I would be bankrupt now. Did population change? What we'd have these take. So this is 20, and then this is 20. So there should the population should be 40, which means that the earthquake didn't kill anyone, but they're now unhoused.
Oh, I see.
But I didn't prompt it to be murderous earthquake, so that seems fair.
Okay, here comes another.
Happiness went down. Again, unclear whether it went down just because of the day, but I have changed it to 100%.
You gained
now,
money,
so.
which
I think that's
definitely wrong.
I think that's just because these buildings earn me money every day.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine. So your rate of money is going down.
Yeah, that's very true.
But the actual treasury isn't being affected.
Very true, very true. Okay, so we've got some natural disasters, but it does say at least 2. I've only got one type of natural disaster.
What's one you could add in 2 minutes?
What about, rather than it being like one of these burns down, what if it's like a lightning strike that is like a single square?
A single house.
A single square gets hit, and it's like battleships, right? And then it'll be interesting to see what new like design it comes up for this. Okay, so
let's see.
I'm going to commit this stuff.
Oh, smart. Real developers.
It's conventional commit there as well. Cool. All right, let's start a new chat. Add a new natural disaster for lightning strikes. A lightning strike affects a single square on the grid, and if there is a building in this square, it gets destroyed. Happiness goes down when lightning strikes.
Oh, smart.
And it goes down more if a building is destroyed. I'll let it figure out what numbers it likes. Create a cool animation for the lightning, similar to the one we have for earthquakes. Make the frequency of lightning configurable. I would be interested to make it not just happen at the end of the day, but to happen throughout the day. But I don't want to overload it at this point.
Yeah, I feel like our trust is fragile with this thing, unfortunately. And I'm going to be watching it like a hawk, because last time it just seemed to mess everything up and took ages.
It get in a really confused little loop, didn't it? So it's examining the existing natural disasters implementation, even though it just wrote it, but it is a new chat.
Yeah, again, like the context management for these tools, I think is fascinating.
What an easy job Simon must have had. Already had this all implemented, but not working.
Yeah, I'm curious. I want him to tell you about some of the things that he did, because it's a different approach as well. This is like a reasonable approach, I think, what it's doing here.
Yeah, seems credible so far, what it's done here. This component is getting really big and complicated, so I think its likelihood of confusing itself is high.
Oh, I can see it's...
Made this a bit more generic.
I can see its animation it's chosen. A fade in.
Yeah, fade in and out by the looks of it. It does look like it's got less confused than it did last time so far.
It does feel like it has got quite a bit less to do now.
That's true. It's already got all the scaffolding. It's got the concept of random disasters.
This always seems to be taking longer than expected.
It's interesting that it said yes to itself. It's in this like weird sort of speaking to itself mode.
Oh my God,
I need to check. Oh yes, we do need to do that. Okay, it's made the changes. I can't be bothered to read all that, but
now we need to remember to accept.
I'm going to blindly accept it. But again, I noticed that it's already in my working copy. I don't think accept actually does anything other than tell Windsurf that I'm happy with it. Whereas I imagine reject would revert these files. So again,
it's not committing it.
Not committing. It is making the change to the file, so it appears in my working copy.
Yeah.
But so accept, I think, is like a no-op. Doesn't do anything. It just allows this to understand that I'm happy. Okay. So there's no errors, which is good. I'm going to increase the chance of lightning to 100%. Oh, I've lost some more buildings, actually, since we last looked at this. But I don't have anywhere near enough for any interesting buildings. But
can you increase
buy some more houses.
Speed of the day?
Oh, interesting.
To be like...
I'm searching...
60 seconds.
Oh, yeah, it's 60, isn't it? Lots of things are 60.
Yeah, is it obvious?
Time left.
Oh, here we go.
But I think that, there's a magic number that's used in a few places.
God, I hate when they do that. That's a really
here
common
we go.
like LLM.
It did an earthquake.
Okay.
Wait, do I need to reduce that to 0% chance? Okay, let me go into simulator and I'll tell you what, I'll do that in a new chat just in case.
Okay, cool. I like
Just making some change.
It seemed to grok that immediately. I feel like the issue before was just it was a complicated thing that we asked. I wonder if Windsurf, like, do they specifically advertise that they're better at targeted changes rather than sweeping changes?
Interesting. Not sure.
I would say Cursor's pretty good at sweeping changes.
I must admit, it's not really part of my workflow so much, like doing these like big add this feature kind of thing in my day to day. I'm more kind of thinking how I'd break down the problem and give the LLM smaller problems because I'm working in a code base I'm much more familiar with and there's established patterns and things like that. Maybe I'm missing a trick there.
I wouldn't say so. I'm sure you're making like much more targeted changes and you're able to explain with some precision. Whereas there's no tests, there's no rubric. It's just.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Aha, there you go. There's lightning. It's decided to impact 2 squares by the looks of it.
It has. It's picked 2 squares. The animation is cool.
It could be that the logic is only 1 square, but it's got the size of the thing wrong, I suppose. It would be difficult for us to test that. I've only got enough money for 2 more houses. I believe I just saw in the code actually that I think this is in local storage. So I might be able to. I'm going to give myself a lot more money.
Oh, wow. Oh, is that how you do it?
Fantastic. Cool. Amazing. Let's go spending. Interesting that it thinks the power plants take up 4, but only visually takes up 1. But I like the idea of a building being able to take up more space. That's cool.
I think that's a cool detail.
Put some parks around. Interesting that we might need to put a little exception for parks. Lightning shouldn't destroy an entire park, or maybe it will. I guess it depends on the.
Brutal. It seems to be your style. Why is happiness so bad? Oh, it's because of the power plants.
Yeah.
Bad news.
And there's lightning every night. So.
They just had 50 earthquakes in a row.
Yeah. This town is having a real tough time.
Starting to rebuild, though, would be such a shame if...
I wonder if there's a minimum cap on the happiness. My happiness is at 0. I've got a 0% approval rating in this town, which is fair enough. It's mostly power plants. one also, poor house, 2 houses.
You weren't elected. So
there we go.
There goes the lightning.
There you go. All right,
so something get destroyed.
There wasn't anything in that gap by the looks of it, but assuming that it works, I'm pretty happy with it. There's 70 people living here, which I don't know where they're all going to live because there's 2 condos and 1 house. Z-index, always fun.
They should honestly leave.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
This is not the kind of town you want to live in, I think.
No, but I will say, Joe, I think you nailed it. You did 2 natural disasters. We had a bunch of faff, didn't we? But
we did.
You did it. Congrats.
Thanks.
Good job.
Thanks. That was good fun.
Okay, let's bring Simon back here and debrief.
Sounds good.
That was so fun. So you guys ended up with projects that I feel were pretty similar, but you took very different paths to get there. And importantly, you used 2 new tools each, which is crazy.
Yeah.
How did you find them?
I really enjoyed BASE44 actually. As a Bolt user, I saw a lot of similarities. I felt like BASE44 got me to what I wanted much, much quicker. Although, to be honest, watching the way you had to take my code and all the dependencies that it required into BASE44 was actually really frustrating. But I really had a good time with BASE44 in generating, doing the prototype. How about you?
It was good fun. I found the sort of 0 to 1, like going from a short little brief into pretty useful and well-designed app was quite impressive. It's a bit like Uncanny Valley in that it's a bit like an IDE, but a lot of the IDE functionality isn't there. So I found myself like going to use things like command click on something, but that's not working, which is a bit weird, but I guess maybe I'm a bit more of a power user. I definitely imagine it as something that will be helpful the next time a friend or a family member asks me, oh, can you help me make this app? There's something for that.
Disposable apps, disposable code. It's very nice.
For sure.
For that kind of use.
For sure.
And I saw you struggled a little bit with, oh, wow, I'm looking at your screen. There's lightning happening all over the place. It's terrible.
Yeah, I've created a very poor town. Yeah. They're having a real hard time.
How about with Windsurf? And I've not used Windsurf. I typically stick with Cursor just because I've used it a fair amount.
Yep.
How about you then with Windsurf? How did you like that as a power cursor user yourself?
Yeah, pretty similar. A lot of the same kind of concepts. They were coming up with like fun names for the chat thing going on in the sidebar, but the interaction model feels very similar. I'd say that I probably used it in a way that I wouldn't normally use cursor, like in my day-to-day work, for example, where I'd think about something, break the problem down, and scope the changes a little more localized. Whereas here I was just, I don't know this code base. I don't want to understand it. I want you to implement this whole sweeping feature. So maybe a bit tricky to compare them. But yeah, I found the management of the state of my changes tricky to figure out. Like, at what point is it actually editing the files on disk? And at what point is it showing me a suggestion of something that it will edit? So I think is a common problem that they also have in Cursor. That's exacerbated if you're working on a big problem and it's taking a long time. I can't also be refactoring something else, because then I have a mix of a bunch of different things going on, and that makes my commit history a nightmare.
Right. I found Cursor, as a Cursor user myself, I wasn't learning anything new per se in doing this. I found it extremely hard to take it to that next level and to actually build on top of it, because every time I was in that horrible, frustrating loop where I want to make a change, it says it's made it, but actually I'm seeing further problems or the same output.
Interesting.
And then I'm constantly in this loop of, actually, this didn't happen. Can you fix it? Yeah, I fixed it. Oh, it's still a problem. Can you fix it? There's still a problem. And that was very frustrating. But that's the classic prototype quick fix issue.
Maybe that is a bit of a difference with Windsurf, because it did seem to want to try and fix problems. And actually that in itself became a problem. That the app that you delivered had an ESLint configuration, but a lot of the code had loads of violations of that ESLint configuration. So my interpretation was that Windsurf was getting in a loop of, oh, I noticed all these lint issues, I'm going to fix them. I noticed all these lint issues, I'm going to fix them, even though it hadn't introduced them. So it's nice that it's trying to respect the configuration of the environment and keep things clean. But yeah, it was a particular case where it confused the hell out of Windsurf. And we had to remove the ESLint configuration entirely so that it stopped trying to keep it at this quality bar that it wasn't at originally.
I felt a little bad, Joe, that I think in both cases you got maybe the short straw. Very hard to say about these tools. But Simon was able to get to a working prototype basically immediately in BASE44, and you really didn't spend any time debugging in BASE44. In fact, you did not even look at the code. Like we could look to see that it was there, but did not read it at all. There's just no need. Whereas Joe immediately got into this, asked for virtually the same thing, right? But immediately got into this death loop.
And you'll love my first prompt as well. I started writing down some ideas of, these are the things that I think we need. And I'm thinking SimCity. And then I got to the prompt and I'm just like, I was about to type in a whole bunch. And I'm like, actually, no, there are 5 words I need. And it was the exact 5 words Macy wrote on the
true brief.
And it came back with this. It took a while, and I was getting a little bit worried. It took, in fact, Macy, you probably saw both. I think BASE44, in my experience with Bolt, took a lot longer than Bolt would have done if I prompted it in exactly the same way. But once it did come back, it was, I'm going to say, solid from the point of view that as a prototype app, it worked. And clicking around didn't actually create too many issues. It just worked. I think I'll have to look back at it, but I think I probably used 5 prompts or fewer to get it to this point, which is surprising. It just kind of just took a large amount of time. And I was like, given the prompts that Macy gave me were so short, I kind of like pretty much hit that within the first prompt that I gave BASE44. Yeah, the problems, I guess, if we think about it from the team point of view, unless everyone's using BASE44, it started adding in auth, it started adding in its own kind of persistence layer. And it wasn't, perhaps in hindsight, I would potentially kind of add from the start, don't add your own authentication, don't use your own persistence models. In fact, for those listening, I did have to go offline and make my own changes to say use local persistence and things like that, so that you could continue. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that kind of lock-in out the gate with BASE44. And I think with these kind of things, they work well when you're not super opinionated on, you have a great example there. You wanted some sort of town simulator, but you weren't super opinionated about the features that it had. And in some ways, that's really helpful to like think creatively to expand the scope. But if you're coming to these tools with a strong idea of the kind of thing that you want to build and exactly how you want that to look and work, it's a bit of a different story.
And it's interesting, actually. So did your environment use local persistence or local?
I don't know, because I couldn't get the state management to work. Gotcha. I think it was just like within memory, essentially. So if you refresh, it would lose it, but I can't quite remember. And it was unclear because it wasn't working.
Yeah, because I was surprised, actually thinking about it, it wouldn't use Superbase, which is actually, so for those who aren't familiar with Bolt, Superbase Netlify are the zero friction paths to do these kinds of things. So although it wouldn't be a similar lock-in in terms of the same BASE44, I'm surprised it didn't just try to go, oh, do you want to use Supabase as your persistence layer and things like that?
Yeah.
I was quite surprised at how fast we could get to this prototype, particularly with BASE44. I was quite surprised at how hard it was to get further with Cursor, with your environment, hitting that many problems. But yeah, I think there's been a fair amount of magic on show today.
Were you able to get my state management working?
To be honest, similar to how I've experienced your code in the past, I wasn't able to progress your application any further than the previous you had. So
that is unfortunate. I'd say that's because I didn't handwrite it.
But yeah.
Something that's interesting, that when we were imagining what we do for this episode, we imagined that you both would do this, and neither of you did this. And that's ask Cursor or Windsurf or whoever for an overview of the code. What is this and how does it work?
Interesting.
Both of you had the exact same process, which was like maybe a little impeded in your case, Joe, but it was to get the thing running without really looking at the code, without examining any more than you needed to. And then just diving into the edits. We didn't anticipate necessarily that would be the process.
It's interesting workflow-wise, like in a code base, I don't really care about the quality of it. I need to make quick changes, and I'm just here to add features, not to maintain this nice garden of code. Why do I even need to understand it? If I can get the LLM to do the changes for me, and I can validate that they at least seem to work in the browser, it's enough for this exercise.
I agree, and I think actually it was probably for the sake of brevity that I didn't think about it too much in terms of, I actually thought as well, I was talking with Dion actually while you were doing yours, and I thought, actually, what I'll probably do straight away is I'll ask Cursor, tell me about this. But actually, once I got there, I just thought, actually, I don't need to. I just know what I want to do. And probably we're all under time pressures, so we'll probably do something similar, even in a real world situation to some extent. But what I really liked in your example was you tried to give it context. The very first thing that you did was describe what the application did, which was really interesting. I'd love to kind of understand maybe with and without that, if it would actually have done it differently, had that just assumption that you use this app as your context. You should already know this in more detail than I could provide you with. And it's fun how you were trying to tell it what it was doing, given that you hadn't even looked at the code as well. So you were doing it from a very high level of trying to explain to it when it probably knew it better than you did at the time.
Very true. It seems crazy, but my rationale was that it can see the code, but it can't see the interface. I wanted to give it a little bit, I want to give it some eyes.
Intent almost.
Yeah, here's all this code, but what's the point in it? What is this driving? I've no data on whether that helps or not. It just intuitively, I'm working with this thing that's blind to one whole aspect.
Yeah.
So I have a final question for Simon. So towards the end of Joe's prototyping, he did something unrelated to the functionality of the app, which was designed to maybe throw you off course a little bit. Do you have any guesses as to what that was? Was it obvious?
Designed to throw. Oh, I see. He did something to his app that was designed to throw me off course. Interesting. I can't think of anything that would throw me off. What did he do?
It did get scoped down. It did get scoped down quite significantly.
Oh, really? No, I can't think. What was it?
So I felt bad. So initially, my first instinct was to ask it to make the code as illegible by a human as possible, turn it into something that looks like compiled code.
Yeah. But
considering the app wasn't even working, I thought that was a really unfair handicap.
Yeah.
So instead, I asked it to replace function and variable names with funny and misleading names. And we were pushing up on time here, and I don't think it did a good job. LLMs maybe not great interpreters of the word funny.
But that's almost a little bit dangerous because it's using that as context. So it would almost confuse itself a little bit with that, potentially.
For sure.
Interesting. I thought you were going to name the town Basingstoke and I completely missed it. But that's interesting.
That's an even better idea.
I jokingly said I was going to obfuscate the code for you at one point.
You didn't.
But no, which is fine anyway, because neither of us really looked at the code anyway, apart from when you were having those various troubles with Windsurf.
I wonder whether that would have thrown the LLM off if it's dealing with super obfuscated code, or whether it would just be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
I have to say, its choice, one of the choices it made was it renamed the variable initial state to initial chaos.
Yeah.
Oh, I did see that.
And
No,
you were
I-
like, oh, initial chaos is, and you just didn't even.
it did clock, and I thought, oh my god, if I bring this up, would it sound stupid? But there was something in my mind where it's like, initial chaos. Why would there be chaos? Yeah, that's it. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, maybe not the funniest twist.
Yeah.
No, I did want to push that a little further, but
Yeah.
running out of time there.
I should have done it in another language. I should have said change everything to French or something.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was fun for me. We hoped to time box this in an hour. We did it in just over 3 with lots of tweaking and stuff off air. Thank you everyone for listening. This is a very different style session to that we normally do. We hope it was interesting to you. We hope it was good fun to introduce maybe 1 or 2 new tools across the 4 that we showed today. And yeah, thanks for watching and listening, and tune into the next session. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us next time on the AI Native Dev, brought to you by Tesla.